I think it was predominantly like competitive things. But we would just sort of add like caveats, like, okay, this person can't hit a winner, or this person has to slice their backhand the whole time. Just stuff
Mm.
that your coaches aren't going to put into a tight practice time, but things that you feel like you need. And so that's what I would do with individual work. And then I think weight room wise, I guess the best way to put this is as the year goes on, that those team workouts at the end of the day, they are targeted towards, maybe not at every school, but at Oregon, they were targeted towards managing the bodies and the workload of the guys that were playing in every match. In tennis, I think you can really, really change somebody's trajectory because a lot of times our bodies come into college underdeveloped, but you're talking about a sport where you have to be fast. You don't have to, you're never going to hit top speed in a tennis match, but you have to be fast. You have to be powerful on repeat. You have to be well
Mhm.
conditioned. You have to be flexible, mobile, all those things. Change of direction.
Hello and welcome back to PA Chalk Up. Today I am at KD Fit. KD's been nice enough to let me film here, so big shout out to Kieran. Today we have Nima. How you doing?
I am well. How are you, Manny?
Um,
Thanks for having me.
it's all good. I'm good. So just give us a little introduction. Tell us who you are and what you do and how you got here.
Yeah, I'm Nima Movassaghi. I graduated from the University of Oregon. Was a member of the men's tennis team there. Um, I grew up in Eugene, so I was a hometown kid and always dreamed of playing there. And that was a dream come true experience. And kind of been all over the map in tennis. Trained as a junior in Southern California. I went to another school in the Bay Area for a year and then transferred home and ultimately had an opportunity to join the men's tennis team at Oregon. And yeah, so that's kind of the quick rundown.
Nice. So what was that process like going from starting out in tennis to getting up to D1 school?
Yeah, pretty interesting process. I think the thing with tennis that I always have noticed is a lot of the kids that were really good in the later time in juniors, they were also the ones that played from when they were 4 or 5 years old. Um, I played a lot of other sports. Tennis was not my first sport, so I played basketball, baseball, football, handball, all of the traditional American sports. Um, kind of took tennis on a little later, kind of late middle school, so I was 11 or 12 years old. Still didn't take it very seriously for a few years. Then when I was 15, I had an opportunity to go to a boarding school, Wild Tennis Academy, that was tennis focused. So we went to school in the mornings, played tennis the rest of the day, and then we go play tournaments on the weekends. And so I was probably what you call a late bloomer. I think like if I look at where I was when I was 16 versus when I got to college, like when I was 16, I was probably not what you would look at and say like, oh yeah, he'll play at a Division I school, and
Mhm.
then I had an opportunity to go play at St. Mary's in California. Um, and I mean, I think my process, I it's a little bit on my rankings and all that were a little bit on the lower end for what would be your typical Division I recruit. I was more of like a mid-major Division I recruit, not a Pac-12 or Power Five, anything like that. And even at a mid-major, I was going to have to work my way into playing time, regardless of where I went. And so, kind of had went through the process with St. Mary's, visited there, and then they actually weren't super interested. They were interested, but I think they didn't really they didn't have anybody graduating, and so they didn't really have use for a freshman who wasn't going to maybe contribute right away. But the assistant coach came and watched me play, and I think after that they thought there might be something there to develop, and so had an opportunity to go there. And um, yeah, I committed pretty late. I think I committed in May of my April or May of my senior year. of high school, and um, yeah, so it was pretty. I wasn't your typical. I mean, I had a lot of offers at like the mid major level, but kind of was always wanted to bet on myself
Mm.
as a at a level maybe a little bit higher than where I would play right away. It's probably not what people would recommend doing, and in hindsight, I probably wasn't the right decision, but it definitely was a cool opportunity to go somewhere that popped up late.
Yeah. What's the recruitment process and commitment process like?
Yeah, so tennis. Well, I guess it's changed now. Everything's changed. But when I was at that point, I think September 1st of your junior year, you could start talk. Coaches could start um, responding to you or reaching out to you directly, and so it's a lot of just emailing. The thing with those mid-major schools, what people don't realize, it's not like football where even a mid-major school has a recruiting department.
Mm.
These mid-major schools, they don't have a big recruiting budget, so they can't go to watch a lot of tournaments, and they're kind of relying a lot on who reaches out to them and is interested, because they also because of their budget, they're not going to pursue kids who they
Mm.
don't think are going to come. So it's a very delicate balance of identifying kids who can help your program but also are interested. And so I reached out to a bunch of schools, probably 50, 60 schools, um, and from there I took some unofficial visits my junior year, which basically you just go. I feel like in tennis is a really good way to show that you're interested.
Yeah.
So you just pay out of your own pocket. You fly there, you watch a match, watch practice, meet the coach. Um, so pretty cool. And then from there, you narrow it down. You kind of like any other sport. You take your main visits your senior year, um, and then just you commit. A lot of people will kind of commit in that first signing period in the fall, but there's also a handful that will commit
Mm.
later. Uh, so it just really depends on um, what school you're going to. I think the bigger schools try to assign their class earlier, but then there's also a component. There's a lot of foreign recruits in tennis, and so a lot of times those recruits end up signing or committing a little later in the game, and so coaches will slow play American kids a little bit just while
Right.
they, because a lot of times that tennis only have 4.5 scholarships, and you
Wow.
typically have anywhere from 9 to 12 guys on a team, and you have to have a really good 1 and 2 to be competitive on your team.
Mm.
So a lot of times you have two of those 4.5 going to two guys, and then from there, um, it's kind of a crapshoot, so to speak. And um, yeah, coaches are always trying to find a way to build their program and do so in the most efficient financial way,
Yeah. So
much
what's
like
the process like during your sort of training and coaching, like on a day to day basis?
once you're in
Yeah.
college. Yeah, so I guess I could take it through both examples of mine. So at St. Mary's, um, I went to school in the morning, and then we were a 2 p.m. practice school. So we practiced at 2. St. Mary's, we probably practiced 3 hours a day. And then I think 2 of those days we do conditioning for another half an hour at the end of practice with the coach.
Damn.
And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we had weights after practice. And then Saturdays or Sundays, we'd practice 1 of the 2 days there. If there wasn't competition. So that's what the fall looks like. And then you have to study and do everything else and get treatment. So St. Mary's was very much a. I felt like Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. It was a. If you added treatment in there, probably three, 4.5, 5 hour training days.
No.
Pretty intense. The body did not like it. And then at Oregon, I thought it was much better from that perspective. 2 days a week, we practiced in the morning for 2 hours, and then the other 3 days was afternoon for about 2 hours. Um, and then we'd have weights 2 or 3 times a week for 45 minutes, and then would do our speed training and conditioning kind of
Mm.
as part of an extended warm up on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and A lot of times we'd get in the fall, if we weren't competing, we'd get weekends off um, to just like kind of hit on our own if we wanted to. If you wanted to go lift, you could do that. Just sort of, they let us be adults and
Mm.
be in charge of our training, which was cool. So there was, I mean, similar in the sense that you kind of have a big chunk of time in your day that's going towards your training, but I felt like Oregon was a pretty, it was very sustainable.
Mm.
We practiced really hard. I thought it just was really smart too. We didn't, people were dragging around or the volume had been high and we were in the middle of midterms. Um, they didn't just push us just to push us. It was always pretty calculated, which in my 2 years in the team at Oregon, we didn't have like really any injuries related to
Nice.
kind of overtraining, yeah, just the wear and tear. I mean, I don't even think we had that many injuries. So obviously, something we were doing was working.
Yeah, that's quite major as well because you've only got a certain amount of hours dedicated to training as well.
Yeah, no, even though you're young, I mean, you're not a machine, and you have studies on top of it.
Mm.
Um, that's where we're not pro athletes. Like you're expected to act like one, but you're not. You have studies, and you can't. If you were feeling your best on Saturday practice, then obviously something is wrong.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I thought they really made the most of like the time we had. Um, I mean, some of the best practices at Oregon were like the day before matches, where they literally let you do whatever you wanted. If you wanted to hit for 30 minutes, cool. If you wanted to hit for an hour and a half, great. But that was some of the best work because like, you had full autonomy over your
Mm.
training. It was not, the coach was not telling you what you needed to do or, watching the clock. There was no clock watching. I mean, even if like you were hitting for an hour after practice, which I would occasionally do, it's like, okay, if there's a reason for it, great. But just to do it, then what were you doing for the 2 hours that we were actually practicing?
Yeah, I think it's something that I come back to a lot on this podcast, and it's like practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And then I think that's what again we've previously spoke about some of the things that you did as a D1 athlete, and I'm always very surprised that the initiative that you would have during your own practices and how you would go in and do extra work. Can you tell me like the difference between like the planned work that you had and the individual work that you did?
Like the individual work that I did on my
Mm.
own, or yeah. I mean, the planned work I think is important. It's important because for one, it's part of team building. I mean, you have to. I think you have to go through hard practices as a
Mm.
team. I think you have to learn how your teammates compete. I think you need to learn what makes people tick, because ultimately, when March and April roll around and the going gets a little tough physically and mentally, you have to know the people you're teammates
Mm.
with. So I think that stuff's important because it also just that stuff will get you a lot of reps in areas that the coaches have kind of said is important.
Mm.
Like the coaches have told us this is important, and so we get reps there, and um, a lot of it is just kind of repetitive. And there's just an aspect of they can put us through some pretty physically challenging drills, but they're kind of in control of the time. They're in control of the rhythm of it, and they can kind of throw I think when they're throwing variables at you, you're reacting,
Yeah.
and that's what competition is going to be. You're not always going to be in control of what's going on when you're doing your own individual training, which I would do. So Brandon Lamb was my teammate at Oregon. We trained together actually at our academy in high school, and then we ended up
Oh,
being
sick.
teammates. Um, him and I on the off days on Saturdays a lot or after practice we'd go and hit. But what we would do is we would just, I think it was predominantly like competitive things. But we would just sort of add like caveats, like, okay, this person can't hit a winner, or this person has to slice their backhand the whole time.
Mm.
Just stuff that your coaches aren't going to put into a tight practice time, but things that you feel like you need. And so that's what I would do with individual work. And then I think weight room wise, I guess the best way to put this is as the year goes on, that those team workouts at the end of the day, they are targeted towards maybe not at every school, but at Oregon, they were targeted towards managing the bodies and the workload of the guys that were playing in every match.
Right.
Um, there were 4 or 5 of us that were not guaranteed playing time, and that did not play. I didn't play. I mean, I only I did not get a ton of playing time at Oregon. There were guys that got a little bit, and then guys that got you know always played. And so if the workouts are catered towards those guys who are playing every week
Mm,
and all the matches, then it's not going to yield as many developmental benefits for those who are not playing.
yeah.
And so I think it was just important to know, hey, I'm not going to go to the weight room and just max out on everything, but I know what I need. Like
Mm,
I know what helps me feel like I know what I need, and so I would just sort of go and whether it be in the early morning before or afterwards, whatever. I would go and just do a little bit, nothing crazy, but enough to feel like okay, like I got my work in, because you never know when your time is going to come, and you don't want to be ill
yeah.
prepared. You don't want to get. You also don't want to get injured because if you're trying to manage this practice load that's higher than other guys who are playing matches every day, then you still are going to need more on the weights and the sprints to physically be able to handle it.
Yeah. So how do you keep pushing and sort of have that mentality to keep going as hard as you can so that when that time does come, you're prepared for it?
It's a good question. I don't know if I have there's any secret. I think it ultimately comes down to your motivation. I love Oregon. It was an honor to wear the O. I grew up as a little kid. I think I probably went. Yeah, I that's hard on the eyes. That purple's hard on the eyes. I probably went as an Oregon tennis player for Halloween as a kid several times.
Nice.
I mean, I was a biggest fan. I mean, loved that place, and so for me, it was a really personal motivation. I mean, you're such a not that many kids from Eugene got to play for the Ducks, and the fact that I did, I never took that for granted.
Yeah.
I never ever wanted someone to say, "Oh, he's not," giving everything. And so I think it was just it's a pride thing.
Yeah. So how does it
There was
feel sort of doing that as a young kid to then get signed with the Ducks?
It's crazy. I don't know how to describe it. It was the coolest thing. It was. Um, I think what was fun though is I realized it every day that I was like living that. It
Mm,
wasn't like I finished playing and then I was like, dang, I fully appreciated it every single day, and going into like the facility that you dreamed of being at every day, and going to practice every day, and the matches and everything. It was so fun. It was some of the best memories of my life. So nothing but positive things, and uh, yeah, it's I can remember being the
yeah.
kid, so being in those shoes made it really cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
really really special.
Does can you take us through like your day to day practices and how they would play out at Oregon?
Yeah. So I think we'd always warm up on the bikes for like 15 minutes, which is good, and then um, I think the beginning, we our coaches were big on like we're not going to waste time. We're not going to sit out here for 3 hours and goof around and like let's get to it. So we would do a one ball warm up every day. So you had one ball. So if you miss it in the net, got to call it out. Everyone runs the net and back. It's not for the sake of conditioning, but it's for the sake of ownership
Hmm.
on you know let's set the tone. Like let's be here. Let's lock it in. We're not going to come out here. Even if you're not hitting the ball at full speed, you are intentionally moving. You're intentionally thinking. You're like locked in. There's no hey, like let's goof around. Let's be loose. There's none of that. And then we would do some doubles drills to kind of set the energy, set the tone. But then from there, we'd probably do some more physical drilling. usually live ball play, and then usually finish up practice with some kinds of competing and more
Mm.
match like atmosphere. And yeah, it was great. It was pretty efficient. Got a lot of Still got a lot of good work. And I mean, early in the year, especially like when there was no matches, you'd leave those practices exhausted.
Mm.
So it was really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed those practices.
So how does that then play into effect when you then have to go to classes and sort of still have like a student life at the end of it?
Yeah, so it was weird because COVID, and
Mm.
so I think a lot of us had online class because they were still offering a lot of stuff online, and one of the years everything was online. So pretty, I guess it was honestly like our life. We just go from home to tennis and weights and then home.
Right.
My last semester, I did have a class conflict with practice that I'd have to leave practice once a week early because at one time the class was offered, and that was just there was a finance class. They only offered it one time. I mean, guys who were in some of the tougher majors like computer science, same thing. But you make it work, and you find another time to practice, and you work around your schedule. So
Yeah.
um, we student athlete as they call it, and so there's no excuse. It's You make it work, and um, there's some guys who cared about school, guys who didn't, and it's everyone in between. And
Yeah.
um, you ultimately you ultimately do what suits your goals. If your goal is just to focus on tennis after college, then maybe you don't need to worry about school. And in my case, where I knew that the day I was done with tennis, I had to get a real job. In that case, I think I was a little more uh, on top of certain things academically. But there's never any judgment. You do what suits your
Mm.
goals. Some guys are just doing the school part because that's the kind of the caveat for wanting to play for playing tennis. That's because some guys are going to go be phenomenal coaches and players after college, and so for them, the school is just part of it. For other guys, you better focus on school because you're gonna need that degree, and um, people are gonna ask you what your grades were and
Mm.
whatnot. So it's all important. Yeah.
How did you find going from sport like pretty much full time and school full time to then working? How was that the physical changes between that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Good question. It's an adjustment. It's an adjustment for sure. Um, I think for me, because of the way I was as a player, where even if I wasn't playing or even if whatever, I was always putting in extra physical work because I felt like I needed it for my mind and my performance. I think it just sort of part of me.
Mm.
So if I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to get the same amount of training in, great. I mean, we'll do it. So I think physically in that regard, no adjustment. I just think being in one place all day at a desk is different.
Mm.
I think initially you're a little bit, like culture, like it's a bit of a shock to the system. I was like not used to sitting that much, but I think like anything else, you just acclimate.
Yeah.
And so now I make it a point. I walk a little bit during the day, and I'm still training really hard, and so it's all good. You just transition to the next thing and find what works for you. You're not going to find what works for you the first week or the second week
Mm.
or the second month. It's probably going to take a little bit. But once you get a rhythm, I think it's just like anything else. Like you couldn't imagine your life being any different.
Yeah, I know that you're still very dedicated to the gym because I know you're out there at 5 a.m. most mornings. How does that sort of help you with your day to day life afterwards?
It's huge. I mean, for one, it's sanity.
Mm.
Like I'm one of those people who, for as long as I possibly can, I want to train this way, and that's what keeps me sane. And it's a passion. I mean, it's a lifestyle. It's a mentality. So I think it's huge. You go to work, you feel super sharp. You feel like you're your best self, or you feel like you're trying to be your
Mm.
best self. um, and you know you're giving it everything you have physically, and so you can go to work and lock in, and think it helps my work, and um, it's I think it's also makes work life sustainable,
100%.
because let's be honest, there's nothing normal or good about 5 days a week, every week of the year, whatever, sitting at a desk all day and not move. There's nothing
Yeah.
normal about that's not what we were meant to do. That's not what people should strive to do. But a lot of people, that just becomes the normal because it's easy, and that's just life. And I guess I refuse to settle for that.
Too
People,
right. Too right.
people to each their own. Certainly to each their own. I mean, I know people who will get off work and go get on the bike for 2.5 hours, and I'm like, well, props to you. I would not be doing that.
So how's the training
That's
changed between
Yeah.
then and now in terms of gym?
I don't play tennis as much. I don't, not because I don't like to. I just it's that chapter. I think that chapter of competitive tennis is probably behind me. I'm sure I'll compete as an adult, but I don't. I enjoy the competing part of it.
Mm.
I don't enjoy going and just drilling for 2.5 hours. It doesn't sound fun. I think training. I've kept the training the same. Usually lift full body 3 times a week, and um, sprint 2 or 3 times a week, and then I have a couple conditioning agility sessions, and yeah, I just again trying to go for sustainable there, and um, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. So
100%. Like
we'll keep it rolling.
when I was across there, I know that you regularly went out and practiced like the drills that you're talking about. You sprinted, you did agility work.
Yeah.
How did you sort of come up with these programs for yourself?
Um, Good question. I guess on the sprinting side, I tried to learn. I try to learn for one. I think like
Mm,
long term, even if you're following somebody else's program or anything, you have to learn. And I think one thing as a player that I always did was I asked questions. Not like in a I'm skeptical of you way, but questions because I wanted to understand why
mm,
we're doing what we're doing. Because you might be, in the summer, you might be, oh, like I was lucky that I lived in the town where we played, so that I had facility access in the summer. But if you're gone out of town for 2 weeks or something, you need to
mm,
kind of have an idea of what to do, right? You don't want to go out and try to run max speed 10 times a day, 6 days a week while you're on vacation. And then, because you think that's what you're
mm.
supposed to do. So I think I just tried to learn while I was a player. And then um, I think on the sprint side of it, I mean, I try to keep it basic, and um, also do stuff that we didn't do when I played that I wish we would have done.
Like what?
Not like just I think a lot of like resisted
Mm,
running, full top end speed work. Not because when I look at our schedule though, like we did a lot of great stuff, and it's also tough because our time is so limited. We can't do with tennis. You're competing the whole year. There's like competition in the fall that's individual, so you don't have the luxury of an off season on campus. Um, you don't have the luxury. You can't really do weighted sprinting on a
mm.
Wednesday
When you have
when
a
you're going to
game.
play 4 matches in a week. Can't do that. So, but there are things that I think are great qualities that now that I can, because I don't have to play 4 tennis matches in a weekend, um, I do that stuff. And then lifting wise, I've just kind of kept it basic. I've tried to mix up different movements, different planes, all that good stuff. And yeah, just do what feels good, and try to push myself to be in better physical shape than I was when I played. I mean, I think that's kind of
Hmm.
the new constant goal.
That's something that I sort of realized at UW was that like these are probably in some of the best schools educationally. So it's fair you got the qualities of an athlete to be at that school and play for that school. But these are also like smart. Like these are really big schools. So what I learned was that not only are they high end athletes, but they're also really smart because they're at these big schools. So they are going to ask you questions. They're going to not challenge you per se, but like sort of just ask rational questions as to why they're doing what they're doing to sort of know why they're doing it. And it's actually quite funny that you sort of did that and picked their brains. I mean, I got picked, like my brain got picked a lot, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, you're a smart kid. You're going to figure out what's going to happen anyways, so I may as well just tell you.
Yeah, totally. And like, so my strength and conditioning coach in college was Jim Radcliffe, legend. I mean, author, speaker, dude is a he worked with Oregon football for 20 or 30, 20 some, I think almost 30 years. I mean, from their bottom to their peak. I mean, he was the guy. Then he's worked with so many Olympic athletes in different sports. I mean, he is the best. Um, and I think the cool thing with him is his training philosophy was kind of the same across like all different kinds of athletes because you're going to get your sport practice in your
Hmm.
sport. We're not going to go in the weight room and do goofy, tennis specific crap. Like we're not going to waste our time. Like we're going to get you what you're not getting in practice. And he was very much, I guess, what one would call a minimum effective dose guy.
Mm.
Um, I don't like that term because I think it like, kind of sells it short. But that's kind of the gist of what it was. Like our Tuesday, Thursday conditioning or speed sessions were we'd probably do 15 to 20 accelerations in a session. We do different kinds of cutting. I mean, if you think when I look back on it now, it was kind of genius.
Mm.
Like he's just getting us more targeted acceleration work before practice, so we're kind of like primed to go. And then over time, you stack that work, and it's helpful. But his thing was like we would do all kinds of handstands and like core work on like gymnastics type core work, and um, it was great. I mean, the weight room was like it was Olympic lifting, but it wasn't like he was trying to make us Olympic lifters. He was just it was trying to get us like quick bursts of power,
Mm.
and so I would ask him a lot of questions, and um, I don't know. Some people thought it wasn't enough weight room work or whatever, but I was but when I would stay over winter break. I mean, those workouts were hard. Uh, you might hit like 6 movements total between everything, but I was not leaving there feeling energetic. I was leaving there feeling cooked.
Mm. It's
He was
also
just very much
intent. Like the intent that you're working at during those sessions is what makes the biggest difference.
oh yeah, and like he would our like speed work in our off season is December basically. Um, so our speed work was like 6 by 30 yards max rest.
Mm.
That seems basic. It seems stupid easy. Go run. I encourage anybody to go try to run, 30 yards all out. Take your rest time. And like that is a work that is like really good training. And then you walk in the weight room and we would like hang clean and do
Mm.
single leg squats and some dumbbell bench variation or overhead press. I mean, or push jerks. I mean, it was solid. Like some of my like I think I cleaned 260 during testing my
Mm.
last year, and the year before I did 230, and I didn't gain a single pound in that year. And that is him in a nutshell.
Mm.
It's like we're not bodybuilding. We're not here to look cool or do funky crap. Like we're gonna get better, and all of your all of your markers, so to speak, everybody improved year
Yeah.
to year.
So what was the testing
And so
like
I'm not.
during those sessions? Like what type of test did you do and what markers did you set?
Yeah, so we did. His thing was it was we do a clean. We do it off of 1 inch blocks, or 2 inch blocks maybe, and then we do vertical jump, pull ups, max pull ups, um, 10 yard sprint or 10 meter
Yeah.
sprint, 20 yard shuttle, and bench press. And bench press was I think in like there's not a ton of carryover to tennis per se, But if you're doing the work in the weight room for a 12-week fall, your bench press should improve.
Mm,
Like that's a pretty good marker of your arms, your back, your shoulders, and all the above getting stronger. But especially for tennis players who are coming in probably like underdeveloped physically in
mm,
that regard, if you come in and bench press 135 in September, you should be able to hit 150 or 160 by December. Um, so I think it was good testing. I mean, I think everything in my 2 years under him, I think everything improved,
mm.
and uh, that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good. So there was no like wonky conditioning test. Um, your conditioning test was could you make it through practice every day?
Hey, it's a good
If you can
marker.
make it through practice every day, you are plenty conditioned. We don't need to do extra. So I appreciated Coach Rad, and um, our coaches also gave him full autonomy, and um, that was great. That was really really cool.
Yeah, something that shocked me is the size of the football area. Oregon, and watched the YouTube video of like them like walking through the facility. That is nuts.
Yeah,
That is
it's crazy. Yeah, that
crazy.
facility's great. Yeah, so they moved into that building 10 years ago. The weight room before that they used the weight room that's like the main athletics weight
Mm,
room, which we would use only I only would use that like in the summer or winter break because we had our another one that was closer to our facility. But even that weight room is ridiculously big. I mean, it's huge.
yeah,
Like it has 2 stories, and the upstairs has like a 60-yard or 50-yard turf
damn.
strip. I'm like, you could literally do everything in here.
I
So
encourage
yeah,
anyone
it's
to
a
watch
facility.
that. That is like that video. I was like, how? How is that just a team's weight room?
Yeah, I mean, I've been into UWs now once, and even that one looks it's way bigger in person than it looked like ever in pictures.
Mm. It's a
Like
good
I
weight room
walked in
too.
there and I was like, oh, it's a good weight room. It's functional. It has everything. It um, good equipment. I was surprised. I don't have much nice to say about UW, but that was um,
Where does the
I
rivalry
like it
come
for people.
from?
I think that's probably bad that I don't know exactly. It's just I think so. It's always from football, but Oregon football was horrible, like in the '70s and '80s, absolutely horrible. But then Oregon, there was the play called the pick. Kenny Wheaton intercepted the pass on Damon Heward, who was Sam Heward's dad, who you coached.
Mm.
Um, and they intercepted it, and it was an upset, and it kind of was Oregon went to the Rose Bowl that year, and it was a little bit of like the changing of the guard, and that I think after that game, Washington's only beaten Oregon a handful of times, and that was 1994. So I think the rivalry is kind of from like the changing of the guard,
Right.
as much as anything. It's pretty hostile. I mean, we don't like them; they don't like us. Um,
Because see, the
certainly
thing that's funny is that their also other rival is Washington. Um, what's it called? Washington.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like I was always very confused. Like I'm from the UK. Like the rivalry doesn't really
yeah,
matter much to me. But like it's always funny to see that how hard the Ducks take it.
yeah. Well, because our rival should technically be Oregon State,
Mm.
but it's weird. Like we root. Well, maybe this has changed. I feel like everyone now roots for Oregon State when they're not playing Oregon. I don't do that either. I don't. If you, I don't. I mean, honestly, maybe I root for UCLA a little bit because one, my brother goes there, and
Mm.
two, their head coach Chip Kelly was Oregon's head coach during a crazy run. So I guess call it nostalgia, but I don't root for Oregon State, and I certainly don't root for Washington. I think the Husky hate, so to speak, is more intense because they're better than Oregon State at most sports.
I'm gonna clip
Oregon State's a pretty,
that.
yeah, Oregon State's a. Should be careful what I say. It's because our football team's okay this year and they beat us last year, but Oregon State's there's a reason they're not going with the rest of us
The Big
to the
Ten.
new conferences. Yeah, so
That's a crazy move too.
they're we always call them little bro, so they're little bro. Huskies aren't little bro; they're just rival.
Yeah. It's always funny, especially that picture that you put up. How much hate did you get for that?
Oh gosh, yeah, I didn't live that one down. Hey, you know what? I always say, if you're gonna talk your shit, you're gonna own up to it.
Fair.
And
I
I
respect
talked my
that.
shit. I was like, "Oh, we're gonna win. We're gonna win." I literally bet something that I did not think was a possibility, which is Oregon losing to Washington. Because you're not a real Duck fan if you think that's a possibility. So I bet that. I've never worn that color or any kind of attire in my life, and I lost, and so I owned up to it. I got a lot of hate though. Got a lot of hate. A lot of people who screenshotted that and have shown me the screenshot of that. I fully plan on Oregon getting the last laugh in that rivalry before we go to the Big Ten.
How important do you think SNC is for tennis and tennis athletes?
This is going to be a hot take, a big hot
Mm,
take. I think it's more important or as important for tennis as it is for any of the sports where like S&C culture is like, ball big and strong. Like I think, like honestly, for football, you have to because
the
it's
physicality of it.
violent. You're getting in a car crash with another man on repeat. So
Mm,
there's an element of that, but they take it way too crazy. I mean, some of the stuff that they have these guys do has zero impact on wins and losses. It's just because the coach has an ego and the
mm,
coach is crazy. In tennis, I think you can really, really change somebody's trajectory because a lot of times our bodies come into college underdeveloped, but you're talking about a sport where you have to be fast. You don't have to, you're never going to hit top speed in a tennis match, but you have to be fast. You have to be powerful on repeat.
mm-hmm,
You have to be well conditioned. You have to be flexible, mobile, all those things. Change of direction. Football, they go hard for 4 to 6 seconds, and then they rest and they get subbed out. And like I always say, like quarterback's like an interesting position because you, it's a talent position. You have to be
mm.
able to throw the ball and make the throws. What the hell is conditioning? What does running gassers do for a quarterback? Like that's honestly the question I always ask, and I see them do that stuff, and I think it's a joke. Uh,
I can explain it. So,
go for
in
it.
my opinion, I think it's important for everyone to do it because for me, it's like, can you keep doing that on repeat no matter how much pressure is put on you? Because like if you think about the cortisol and hormones are happening while you're under these stressful situations, that's exhausting.
Hmm.
So I feel like running gassers is a way to build up that reserve so that when you are on these high state sort of situations, you can still keep calm and keep your heart rate levels down so you can make these throws and make these powerful movements.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's a um, very valid reason. I guess like to answer your question, I think when you're training somebody for the sport of tennis,
Mm.
they're going to be out there by themselves, and so you literally have to prepare them physically for everything that could
It's
happen.
very constant as well. Like these are
And
constantly.
it's constant, it's demanding, and you know you got to play back to back days, and it's just different. It's very hard on the body, very hard on the joints. So unfortunately, a lot of schools don't take it seriously enough. Because it's like there's this misconception, oh, we don't want our guys to get jacked. I'm like,
Mm.
for one, go look at any good pro player. Go look at some of these guys who are like, I mean, there's a lot of specimens. Um, they may not bench 315, but those guys are
Yeah,
ripped.
they can zip.
Uh, there's no one's going to lose a match because they're ripped. It's not going to happen. So I think there's just a huge opportunity there, to grow the S&C side of tennis because, I mean,
Mm.
it's so beneficial. I mean, it keeps you out of the training room, and that's. Um, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah. How much did you work on decelerations and sort of knee health while you were at Oregon?
You said knee health.
Yeah, as in like knee health.
Um, Not a ton, not a ton. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said we did much. He was kind of the plyometrics guy. That was kind of one of his big research areas
Mm.
was plyometrics, and so we did a lot of landing, a lot of work on like good
Decelerations.
landing and yeah, yeah. His whole thing was it's almost more important to be able to decelerate well than to accelerate well.
Yeah. So how much of
And so
that did you do?
it was still pretty micro dosed, but when we did it, it was high speed all out
Mm.
and very reactive. Like he would be, you would you'd accelerate to the cone, but then you're reacting on the decel. You're not just plan like I mean we do a little bit of planned decel early in the year, but then from there it was a lot of reactive decel and yeah, that was more of it. I think weight room wise we did very little um, extra prehab, if you will.
Yeah. Fair. Um,
Probably should have done more.
if you look back at your training now, like what's some things that you would change or add into it?
Good question. More more top end sprinting, um, and then maybe some resisted. Based on some of the things I've read in my own learning for myself, I think a little bit of an occasional micro dose of resisted running,
Mm.
um, just because I think acceleration is so important in tennis, and I think a little bit of intentional work on acceleration, like with load, would have been maybe helpful. And then I don't know, maybe a little less of the Olympic lifting and more just more like explosive work that wasn't as technical.
Mm.
There's just a learning curve there. Like yes, a clean is great, but could you train a lot of those
Mm.
things another way that's easier to learn and maybe more effectively implemented when you have short time with college athletes probably, but wouldn't change much. I mean, mostly on the running side, and probably actually the one thing I would add is more uh, off ground conditioning. So more just like kind of steady state
Mm.
bike work.
Nice. What's like
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway that you have from that experience
From training or Oregon
from
or
training?
that they're very small daily deposits, but they have a big impact on your long term performance.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that.
so when I was a freshman, I was I could lift a lot of weight. I could, relatively speaking, I'm not saying I could do anything crazy, but I was really strong. My movement quality, both on the court and in the weight room, was shitty, horrible. I mean, horrible. Like I don't think I could get into like a deep squat and hold it. Couldn't, full range of motion work wasn't great. It's all kinds. I could really be hard on myself if I wanted to.
Oh, please
Um,
don't. You're
so
a phenomenal
when I look at
athlete.
when I look at where I was as a senior or a fifth year senior at Oregon, night and day. I mean, I could teach everything we were doing to new guys. The hip mobility stuff, the squat, everything. I moved so much better.
Mm.
Like, and it had a total impact on my tennis. Um, but you don't realize that change when you're going through the day to day, right? You're kind of so in your, I guess, in your zone that you're like, oh, I'm not getting any better. This is
Mm.
this is useless. But then I could pull up a video of myself lifting or sprinting when I was 20 or 19, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awful. Like, what was I doing? Like, how wow, if I knew what I knew now, you know. So that's I think where you realize like how much impact it had.
Yeah. What's your prospects on getting back in the court and competing?
Oh, I think I'll do men's league in the spring. Just you play one match a week, and then you get your life back. Otherwise, and it's singles, so you're competing, and you get to go against somebody else. And I like the mental challenge of it, and it's a good way to just physically kind of stay in
Mm.
it. Um, so I think that's probably what I would say. I think it'll be more fun as I get a little bit older, which I'm not there yet. So
Yeah, I was going to
I'll
ask, like, what's your relationship with it just now? Because I know sometimes when you play something at such a high level, once you stop, it's hard to just sort of get back into it.
yeah, I have a great relationship with it. I mean, for one, I'm a super proud alum of the place I played at. I'll say this: anytime I could go out and goof around and hit balls, I'd love to. I don't have I. It's no longer my mission in the mornings when I wake up,
Mm.
and that's okay. I think my relationship with it is I choose the relationship. Um, when I want to compete, I do it. When I decide, hey, I want to go play 3 times this week for fun. Cool, we'll do it. If I want to go a month without hitting a ball, I'm training hard
Mm.
anyway. It's not going to make a difference. But nobody's judging me on my tennis results anymore.
Fair.
So I don't really.
I mean, I
I
think I could
I
still.
love that I get to choose. I love that I get to choose the relationship with
Yeah,
it, and um, you know,
I think
I
that's
can
super
still hit a
important.
tennis ball.
I think that's super important because like it can be quite a quick downfall when you go from such highs to then just like playing it and then it doesn't feel the same and then you dip. But like choosing that relationship, I think.
Yeah, totally. Well, and also, honestly speaking, played really bad my last year in college. I think I didn't perform my best. I got better, but I think at a certain point it's tough because you're this fifth year guy who's leaving. Why would a coach pour all the development
Mm.
time into you? That doesn't make any sense. So I think I wasn't part of the lineup plans very much, and so I was just there to be a really good team guy and a good leader. And but as a result, I think my tennis level, my level didn't dip, but your competitive toughness definitely dipped. And so I kind of came out of it not playing my best, and so I was like, that's okay. Like there was no it wasn't like I ended on some high and
Mm.
I like was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with that? I'm not going pro, but I was playing too well to quit now, type of thing. I think it was just the perfect ending to a great chapter, but it was time to turn the page.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you could look back into now and sort of be or have done it differently?
Um, Sleep more, or right. So they always told you like, oh, you got to sleep 8 hours, but you'll get by on 6 hours here and there. So they always taught us that's good. That is really good sound advice. Well, I got myself, I don't have it on, but I got an Aura ring after
Mm.
I finished playing. Boy, did I learn how bad my sleep habits were. Uh, I thought if you get in bed at 10, supposedly fall asleep and wake up at 5:30 that you slept 7.5 hours, and how great is that? What I learned from my ring is I probably slept 6.5, and
Mm.
it was really poor quality sleep because I would eat dinner at 9 o'clock and drink a little caffeine right after practice to go lift. So I would have put more into, and then I would wonder why it would take me till noon every day to wake up.
Mm.
So probably sleep. I'd be a little more cognizant of sleep. Um, and then I think other than that, would probably have focused less on what you know. I think I would have focused more on the things I like cared about and less on like trying to like impress a teammate or
Mm.
impress a like. I don't, not that that's what I was doing all the time, but I think you get so caught up in these like lineup battles. Like I'm here, so and so's here. So when I play so and so in practice, I'm not just playing them to get better. I'm playing them to take their spot.
Mm.
And yes, you need to have a competitive attitude where you're trying to get better and push it, but you can't put so much pressure on yourself that you don't do the things you need to do. So I think I would have just kind of focused less on that kind of stuff, and just played a little more,
Yeah.
just enjoyed certain things.
What were some of the things that you did that sort of y- to get your sleeps right?
Um, Trying to go to bed at the same time every day, wake up at the same time. Um, don't eat super late. I take my bedtime supplements. I do magnesium and glycine and zinc.
Hmm.
I have no idea if it works, but I'm a little I'm a little superstitious, and so it works for me. I'm not. I'm still no champion of sleep, but I do a much better job now than I did in college. So
Yeah. So we've gone round to the viewer questions, and you kind of just touched on
nice.
it.
Let's do it.
Um, so what were some of the sort of rituals that you would have during your matches and before or after matches?
Yeah, I think. But I mean, I was always a big music guy. I never liked driving to the match with teammates.
Hmm.
um, Kind of like just a lot of times I would do music sometimes in the car. Other times I would just drive in silence and just sort of, if I was playing, I kind of wanted to just get my thoughts where they needed to be. The other thing is, if I was playing in a match, I think it was super important. I would do some kind of physical warm up on the courts
Hmm.
before going back into change and go out with the team. Um, I just think there was something about you take in the court beforehand, um, and then also like I don't want the first time I'm breaking a sweat to be like when we're actually starting to hit balls and it's starting to feel real.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'd say that was kind of the thing there. And then I think after match, not much. I would journal a little bit if I played and had feedback for myself. But usually you're emotionally exhausted and just fun to hang out with my parents and teammates. Yeah, during matches, I mean, not a ton. I was pretty locked in. I felt
Hmm.
like, and um, and when you're in college, like the setting always just is so different. The circumstances are never perfect. So what's more of just trying to do that. Like I would have like hydration habits and stuff that would part of I guess my rituals, but um,
What was your hydration
nothing.
habits?
I'd pound the electrolytes like 3 or 4 hours out, and then kind of just sip on water from there, so I wasn't residing in the
uh,
bathroom part time. Uh, so, I mean, I would eat breakfast. I would go to in Oregon. We'd go to this place, Pancake House, and so I'd kind of get the same thing for breakfast. It was like eggs, bacon, and toast. So if I was playing, that's what I always like to eat before.
yeah. What was the wildest ritual that you've seen?
Oh gosh. Um, that's a good one. Um,
I'm full of good questions.
that's a good question. I'm gonna keep it PG because there's some non PG ones that are pretty funny, but not appropriate. Just questionable. Uh,
Was it teammates?
Both. I've
Oh,
sthink all kinds of stuff.
I'll ask after the
There
podcast.
was a team one. There was a team one that was interesting. I'll go with this one. We played a team. I think Oregon plays them this year, so I'm not gonna put bad juju out there. But they basically did some version of like like a haka
Okay.
during their warm up lines, but they would like make a show out of like screaming in our direction. And I
Okay.
always thought that was just interesting. I'm like, what, you're trying to intimidate us? Like it's our home courts. Like you're not. What are you doing?
That is
Yeah. Other
interesting.
than that, I think some individual ones that were just odd, but nothing that really sticks out.
Fair. See, the thing is, like, I know how superstitious some tennis players can get,
Oh yeah.
and I always ask. tennis players that I've made, like, and I've met, like, what is like the one thing that you have to do, like, either before, during, or after a match, that like it has to be the exact same order every single time, where you're just like, "Ah, I hate it."
I had a training one that I would do after matches. And my last year I didn't play in a lot of matches that whole year, so only got to put it to test a few times. But I would always go do this workout, and it was like a couple sets of box jumps, some trap bar deadlifts for speed, a couple dumbbell presses for speed, uh, and then I would get out. That was kind of my that was like my little post match. It was like almost
Mm.
like while I was still warm, it felt like I would go do
What
that.
was the reasoning behind it?
To take the good feels of the post
Mm.
match and just I think there's like a really interesting, and I don't know the hormonal science and I don't know all that behind. I think there's a very interesting state that one is in at the end of a competition versus the end of practice.
Mm.
So for me, it was more of just, hey, let's go take advantage of that and see if we can, rip out some numbers or speeds that are unusual for me.
Yeah. So what's like the next thing that you're trying to work towards, either like in the gym or competitiveness wise?
Uh, I want to run over 23 miles per hour.
Okay.
Uh,
What are you doing to
get
get
22
that?
and sprinting 3 times a week. Do an acceleration day, a max velocity day, and then kind of a hybrid depending on the weather. I'm at 22 and a half right now, so we'll see if I can squeeze
Ooh.
out a little more on these genetics. Um, um,
How much hamstring work
and
are you
then,
doing, or posterior
um,
chain?
yeah, I do like RDLs, and I'll do some eccentric hamstring stuff, and I'll do some isolated like hamstring curls on each leg. Nothing more than I've usually done, but we'll see.
Hmm.
23 is going to be tough. Not going to lie.
Hey, I believe in you.
Well,
Like the work
thank you.
rate,
I don't know.
the work rate that I've seen you push, and like just the mentality that you have towards training, I think you can squeeze it out. I
We'll
full
see.
faith.
We'll see. I will. I'll post proof if I do it. And then other than that, just honestly, just trying to stay in really good shape. I think that's like the. I think that's there's so much that goes into that,
Hmm.
especially the older you get and the older your training age. It's like sleep, nutrition, recovery, all that's part of it. And so I think that's just kind of the constant challenge is can we I hate the term 1% better, but it's more of like can we just make consistent
Hmm.
gains over time?
I'm gonna send you
Not
some
nothing crazy over
videos of some hamstring stuff to do. So sprinting essentially is a quad and then hamstring. So you have to pull with the hamstring off the ground. And that's how the contact and
Yeah.
acceleration works. And I had Ryan Crossan on, who you'll
Yes.
know, um,
Yeah.
and he says like it's crucial to have that hamstring strength, and like the explosiveness of it is like very beneficial as well. I'll send. I know Caroline will know a lot about this because she would have done it with AJ as well. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm waiting, man. I'm waiting.
so I'll send you some of the
You're
stuff that I've
gonna
been
get me
looking
over the
into.
hump. You're gonna get me over the hump, and then you can carve out like a little niche. Like, oh yeah, I get you faster with these three exercises. Trust me, you'll get 5 million views on YouTube with that. With that,
The thing is, I'm slow as. I'm slow.
you get faster. You sprint, you get faster.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Neil, for coming on.